Two wives, two families, and one man living a perfect lie. My name is Isabella, and I am 36 years old, and for most of my adult life, I truly believed that I understood what stability, commitment, and emotional security looked like, especially after I married my husband, Jonathan, who is 44 years old, a man I once described to everyone around me as dependable, responsible, and quietly loving in a way that made me feel safe without needing constant reassurance. Jonathan and I had been married for nearly 10 years, and although our life was not perfect, it was comfortable, structured, and built on routines that gave me a sense of calm, even though there was always one unspoken sadness between us, which was the fact that we were never able to have children despite years of trying, medical consultations, emotional ups and downs, and long nights where we would sit together in silence, holding on to hope that slowly, almost invisibly, faded into acceptance. At the beginning of our marriage, we talked endlessly about building a family, about names, schools, and the kind of parents we wanted to be. But as time passed and reality became harder to ignore, those conversations became less frequent, then shorter, and eventually disappeared completely, replaced by a quiet agreement to move forward with our lives as they were, even if that meant burying a dream we once shared deeply. Jonathan worked in a position that required frequent travel, often leaving early on Monday mornings and returning late on Thursdays, sometimes extending his trips with explanations about meetings, deadlines, or unexpected responsibilities. And although part of me occasionally felt the loneliness of spending so much time alone, I never allowed suspicion to take root because I believed that trust was the foundation of any strong marriage, and I chose to believe in him completely. One rainy afternoon, while Jonathan was away on what he had described as an important 3-day business trip, I decided to reorganize the bedroom closet, something I had been postponing for weeks. And as I carefully moved his travel bags to create space, I noticed that one of them felt heavier than usual, as if something inside had been placed there without much attention. Curious, but not yet alarmed, I opened the bag slowly, expecting to find forgotten clothes or documents, but instead, I found a neatly wrapped small box hidden beneath a layer of shirts. And although I hesitated for a moment, feeling that I was crossing a line, I eventually opened it, telling myself that it was probably nothing important. Inside the box was a bracelet. It was delicate, elegant, clearly chosen with care, but it was not mine. And what made my heart begin to race uncontrollably was the small engraved message on the inside. Forever yours, J. Hart L. I stared at it for a long time, trying to convince myself that there had to be a reasonable explanation, perhaps a gift for a relative, a colleague, or even something from the past that he had forgotten to throw away. But deep down, I felt a growing unease that I could not ignore. Before we continue the story, download the PDF in the description and stay till the end. You'll find useful vocabulary, examples, and a fun quiz. That night, I couldn't focus on anything else, and although I tried to distract myself with television, reading, or even calling a friend, my thoughts kept returning to that bracelet, to the meaning behind it, and to the possibility that my understanding of my marriage might not be as solid as I had always believed. When Jonathan returned the next day, I watched him more carefully than ever before, paying attention to the smallest details, his tone of voice, his body language, the way he avoided eye contact for just a fraction of a second when I mentioned his trip. And although nothing was obvious enough to confront him directly, something felt different, something subtle but undeniable. The following morning, the bracelet was gone. I searched for it in the exact place where I had found it, but it had completely disappeared, and in that moment, any remaining doubt I had vanished, replaced by a cold, clear realization. Jonathan knew, and he was actively hiding the truth from me. Instead of confronting him immediately, I decided to gather more information, even though every step I took felt like I was slowly dismantling my own life, piece by piece, as I searched for answers that I wasn't sure I was ready to face. I began by checking his emails, something I had never done before, and although I felt guilty at first, that feeling quickly faded as I came across conversations that confirmed my worst fears, messages filled with familiarity, affection, and shared memories that I was not a part of, exchanged with a woman named Leah. As I continued reading, the timeline became painfully clear. This was not a recent affair, not a mistake or a moment of weakness, but a long-term, carefully maintained relationship that had existed alongside our marriage for years. My hands were shaking as I searched her name online, and when I finally found her social media profile, everything fell into place in the most devastating way possible. There were photos. Dozens, then hundreds. Leah smiling next to Jonathan, Leah celebrating holidays with him, Leah holding the hand of a young child, and then another. 2 children, their children. I felt as if the air had been taken out of my lungs as I realized that while I had been grieving the absence of a family, Jonathan had been living that exact life somewhere else, sharing moments, memories, and emotions that I believed we had both lost. One photo stopped me completely. It showed Jonathan sitting on a couch, a little girl asleep on his chest, while a boy leaned against his shoulder, and the caption read, "Home is wherever you are. Heart." I didn't realize I was crying until my tears fell onto the screen, blurring the image, and yet I couldn't look away because part of me needed to fully understand the depth of the lie I had been living in. After hours of hesitation, I found Leah's phone number and called her, my heart pounding so loudly that I could barely hear my own voice when she answered. At first, she was confused, then defensive, then silent. As we exchanged details, names, dates, routines, the truth became undeniable, not just for me, but for her as well. And what shocked me the most was that she believed she was the only woman in his life, just as I had believed. The next day, we met in person, 2 women connected by the same man, the same lies, the same carefully constructed illusion. We compared everything, wedding dates, memories, significant moments, and with each detail, the reality became clearer and more painful. Jonathan had built 2 complete parallel lives, managing them with a level of organization and deception that was almost impossible to comprehend. When we finally confronted him together, his reaction was immediate and revealing because instead of confusion or denial, there was only fear in his eyes, the fear of someone whose secret has finally been exposed. He tried to explain, saying that he loved us both, that he never intended for things to become so complicated, that he felt trapped in his own decisions, but his words felt empty, meaningless in the face of the reality he had created. Because love does not divide itself into lies. Love does not require constant deception to survive. What he had built was not love. It was control. It was fear. It was selfishness disguised as emotional attachment. The months that followed were among the most difficult of my life, filled with legal battles, emotional exhaustion, and moments of deep reflection where I questioned everything I thought I knew about trust, relationships, and my own judgment. Leah and I continued to speak occasionally, not because we became close, but because we shared an understanding that no one else could fully grasp. And through those conversations, we slowly rebuilt a sense of clarity and strength that had been shaken but not destroyed. Over time, I realized something important, something that changed the way I saw everything that had happened. Jonathan did not create 2 families because he loved deeply. He created 2 families because he was afraid of losing, afraid of choosing,
afraid of being alone, and instead of facing that fear honestly, he chose deception, believing he could maintain both lives without consequences. But in the end, he lost everything, and I lost nothing that was truly real, because real love is not measured by how present someone appears to be, but by how honest they are when no one is watching. And now I understand that although I was married for nearly 10 years, I was never truly sharing my life with someone who was fully there. And that truth, as painful as it was, set me free.
In this section, I'll show you some important words from the story, their meanings, and a simple example to help you understand and use them. Dishonesty. The word dishonesty means when someone does not tell the truth and hides things on purpose, especially from people who trust them deeply. For example, his dishonesty in the relationship slowly destroyed everything they built together. Deception. The word deception means making someone believe something false by lying or hiding the truth, often to protect yourself or avoid consequences. For example, he lived in deception for years, pretending everything was normal. Confront. The word confront means to face someone directly and talk about a problem or truth that is difficult or uncomfortable to discuss. For example, she finally confronted her friend about the lie instead of staying silent. Illusion. The word illusion means something that looks real or perfect on the outside, but in reality it is not true at all. For example, their happy life was just an illusion hiding many problems. Trust. The word trust means believing that someone is honest, loyal, and will not hurt you, even when you are not watching them. For example, once trust is broken, it is very hard to rebuild it again. Realization. The word realization means the moment when you finally understand a truth that you did not see clearly before. For example, her realization came when she found the hidden messages. Hidden. The word hidden means something that is kept secret and not shown to others, often because it could cause problems if discovered. For example, he had a hidden life that no one knew about. Relationship. The word relationship means the emotional connection between people, especially when it is based on love, care, and communication. For example, a healthy relationship needs honesty and respect. Fear. The word fear means a strong feeling of being afraid or worried about something, especially about losing someone or something important. For example, his fear of being alone made him make selfish choices. Strength. The word strength means the ability to stay strong, calm, and continue moving forward even during difficult or painful situations. For example, it takes real strength to start again after being hurt. What does dishonesty mean? A. Being very kind to others. B. Not telling the truth and hiding things. C. Working very hard. D. Helping people in need. The answer is B. Not telling the truth and hiding things. What does deception mean? A. Making someone believe something false. B. Being honest all the time. C. Talking loudly. D. Feeling happy. The answer is A. Making someone believe something false. What does confront mean? A. To run away from a problem. B. To ignore someone. C. To face someone and talk about a problem. D. To laugh at someone. Challenge yourself. Write your answer in the comments. Thank you for watching. Before you go, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss any new content.